Let's get back to the drive on the home of the Sens, TSN 1200. Now, it's time for Need to Know Basis.
Welcome back to the drive. Hour number 2, Lever Sage, Matt Conasvita. AJ's flying home from Winnipeg. He'll be with us tomorrow. Here is what you need to know on a Thursday afternoon. Lots of news here in the NHL. A number of trades. The Detroit Red Wings have acquired Alex Nedeljkovic from the Carolina Hurricanes for Jonathan Bernier and a third-round pick. Nedeljkovic, who was arbitration eligible as an RFA, shortly after the trade, signed a 2-year, $6 million deal with the Red Wings, 25 years old. Shane Gostisbehere is now a member of the Arizona Coyotes, but to clear his $4.5 million for the next 2 seasons, the Philadelphia Flyers had to give Arizona a second-round pick and a 7th-round pick to clear that cap space. So it's a 2nd round, a 7th round, and Shane Gostisbehere going to Arizona for cap relief for the Philadelphia Flyers. And also, the Calgary Flames have acquired Tyler Pitlick from Seattle. They took Pitlick yesterday and now have traded him to Calgary for a 4th-round pick. Looks like they're close on Taylor Hall with a 4-year deal worth $24 million, working on no trade clauses. Not official yet, but looks like it is close. And Barclay Goodrow's 6-year deal at almost $22 million, about $3.64 million per year, officially announced by the New York Rangers. And a big story in the NFL that if there are outbreaks among unvaccinated players in the NFL, and if a game cannot be rescheduled during the 18-week season, the NFL has sent a memo to all teams that the team with the outbreak will forfeit the game and be credited with a loss for playoff seeding, and both teams will not get paid for that particular week. So the NFL trying to do something to make sure that their schedule is not affected like it was last year, whether it's the right thing or wrong thing. That's up for a lot of people to decide on their own, but the NFL, this is what they are doing in a memo that they have sent out to all of their clubs today, and that is what you need to know. You also need to know that, yes, it was Duran Duran on our musical theme Thursday here. Usually it is Duran Duran for what you need to know, but this time it was Rio.
And that's a bit of a hint for you who are paying close attention.
Mm-hmm.
Might be more song-related than artist-related today.
I would think so. So I'm just trying to think about it. Me and the listener against you, Matt.
And Steve texted in, is the theme lyrics that include religious references, mention of God in Hot for Teacher, personal Jesus, Angel in Creep, and Kim Mitchell still sucks. Well, Steve, you're right about one thing there.
It's probably the last thing in your particular opinion.
And that would be that Kim Mitchell still sucks. That is not my theme today. Steve also guessing all these songs have a short musical interlude right before the chorus. That's not my theme, but I love the guesses, Steve. Keep them coming.
Okay. My thought process, I'm sure it's wrong, but with Rio playing, I'm wondering about an Olympic theme with the Olympics kicking off. And I've been looking through some of the other songs, Matt.
Mm-hmm.
Is it something to do with the Olympics?
I like the way you're thinking, but no, it does not. Sorry.
Okay.
Did I get your hopes up even slightly?
Nope.
No, I did not.
Because I know that you're much more in depth than I. It sounded like too general of a guess, but the Olympics are getting underway, and of course the Olympics have been in Rio. I was trying to tie some other very, very loose things from other songs into the Olympic Games, and that is not it. Okay, we will continue to guess. It's also a Takeout Thursday here on The Drive. 2 things have to happen. You have to hear the cue to call. When you hear the cue to call, be caller number 15 And no, when Matt Conzvita orders breakfast from Gabriel's, yes, they have great breakfast at Gabriel's Pizza. Matt orders
The Wild Western omelet. 3-egg omelet, ham and onion, little home fries and toast. Oh, lots to love about ham and onion in an omelet. I assume you're not an onion guy. You probably don't like onions or mushrooms.
Well, Matt, first of all,
I'm
you know
closer
what happens,
to the mark with the mushrooms.
You know what happens when you assume.
I do.
Right.
But I feel like there's a but coming.
Yes, Matt, you're halfway there. You're living on a prayer.
Ugh.
Fantastic chance to get that back in again. I do like onions, but no, I do not like fungus. So, there's your answer to that. All right, let's get to the Ottawa Senators here. As Pierre Dorion spoke to the media earlier, we're going to let you hear that later on in the show, the complete availability. But let's hear a little bit and discuss. First of all, Pierre Dorion was asked about making the pick at 10 and what the chances were of him being able to select a player when the number 10 position comes along.
We know we're going to get a good player, whether it's a starting goalie, a top 4 defenseman, or someone that we feel can play on our top 2 lines. In looking at what we think will be available at 10, we know those criteria will be met. Obviously, with a lot of these players not playing a lot of hockey last year, so stepping into the NHL might be a bit more difficult, but you never know depending on the player, on his physical maturity, mental maturity, where they're at. You have a surprise, but for the most part, most likely that player will go back to his team this year and will probably have a good chance to step in our lineup the following year.
So there is Pierre Dorion talking about what the number 10 position will give. I think this is an interesting comment. And Matt, I've talked to Pierre Dorion. I've talked to Trent Mann and Brian Murray and different people with the Senators organization every year, right? You have the pre-draft media availability. And what are you really going to say? Nothing. You're not going to tell people what.
You can't tip your hand.
Yeah.
Because as soon as people know what you're going to do, it gives them all the leverage.
Right. So the only thing we can do is read into the comments and try and dissect them as best as we can. I think it's interesting that he used a starting goaltender as the first thing. Whether it's a starting goaltender or a top 4D or a top 6 forward in that order. Right? Because I think there's been a lot of talk about the goaltenders. I think that's, to me, I hear that and I think, okay, smokescreen. That's what I hear when I hear him talk like that. And then at the end, I guess I tend to believe him a little bit more. And look, it's not Pierre Dorion's job to tell anybody what's going to go on. It's the job of the general manager of all teams to get the player that they want the most when it comes to the draft. That's all that matters. It doesn't matter what they say to media or fans or anything else. At the end of that comment, he talked about it's been a difficult year and the player will probably have to go back. But then he said, and then, a much better chance of stepping into our lineup the year following. I can tell you what won't be happening with a goalie is that player stepping into the lineup in 2 years as a number 1 guy. I don't care what goalie you pick. If you pick a goalie number 1 overall, that goalie is not going back to play for his junior team or play over in Finland or Sweden for a year or wherever, coming back and being your number 1 goaltender the year after that. I think that's interesting from Pierre Dorion. Talking about, at the end, the player that we select is probably going to have to go back and play somewhere else, and then we'll have a much better chance of being into the lineup the year following, because that's not a goalie.
Mm-hmm.
But again, this is only how I'm dissecting Pierre Dorion's comments. Is that a fair assessment? I have no idea what he's thinking. I have no idea where he's telling the truth and where he's not. So I'm just guessing.
To me, that seems like the logical way to go. based on his comments. But again, Pierre's trying to not reveal too much, but also answer the question. Are you reading into his words? Of course you are. But there's nothing in his comments that we just played that make you think, all right, slam dunk, they're taking a goalie, 10 overall.
Right. So let's talk about the goaltending depth. And Pierre Dorion addressed that with the media earlier today.
Well, we always say that we feel our depth is as strong as it's ever been, especially since in my time in Ottawa or in my time as general manager. It's something that we've targeted through the draft. In the last few years, we've taken a goalie pretty much every single year. I think it's something that we feel, and we've traded for some goalies. We just feel that it's the most important position, and as I alluded to before, I think we've got the quality and we've got the quantity at every level. What really has impressed us is how the players have progressed. Certain goaltenders have progressed, and the progression has been at different pace. But we feel that we're in a good spot, especially. We feel and we know that Matt Murray is going to bounce back and have a very strong year. In my time in the NHL, and I was talking with DJ yesterday, in his time in the NHL and his time playing in the minors or in the NHL, we don't feel that we've ever seen a goalie practice as hard as Anton Forsberg or have that type of work ethic. We feel that the way that Gustafsson played last year and the way Sogard stepped in the American League at the end of the year says a lot about those two as far as goaltending prospects. And when you have someone of Levi Merilainen's caliber, who we feel will be one of the better junior goalies in the world this year, and at the same time you have Mandelays, who had some outstanding games last year for Belleville and some not so outstanding games as a first-year pro that we're really set in net for years to come.
Okay, so you listened to Pierre Dorion there, and what do you think?
They're not taking a goalie at 10. Maybe they'll draft one later in the draft. I think him pointing out that they basically draft a goalie a year is a sign that there's a chance they take another goalie. But listening to that, it seems like Pierre still feels pretty good about the goaltending in the system in spite of losing Joey Daccord in the expansion draft. It doesn't sound to me like there's a pressing need to go out and pick a goalie at 10. Now, you use the word smokescreen when we were discussing his previous comments. For all we know, maybe he's trying to, because a lot of the mock drafts have them taking Wallstedt at 10th overall. Mm-hmm. Maybe this is a smokescreen because everyone's expecting him to, and he's trying to throw them off the scent. And that's part of the issue with, looking in depth at these comments is he could be trying to make people think he doesn't want to take a goalie because everyone thinks he's going to take a goalie. Like, there's some mind games going on now, I would think.
For all teams.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I mean, I heard Ken Holland saying that they're not in the market for a defenseman, and they're probably not going to pick a defenseman. You wait till, like, Luke Hughes drops to number 10 or drops to a spot where the Edmonton Oilers could take him, he will be taken. So, again, you just have to take everything with a grain of salt and try and dissect it as best as you can. That's the only thing you can do. I agree with you, Matt. I think the way that he talked about his goalies there, let's just assume, okay, for whatever the year that Matt Murray has, let's just assume he plays well enough that he isn't a storyline for the Ottawa Senators. I'm not talking about winning the Vezina or anything like that. I'm just talking about he plays well enough that on a day-to-day basis, we are not talking about Matt Murray. That's it. If that happens, and you have a guy with the work ethic that he talks about with Anton Forsberg behind him and came in and played pretty well, you know that the defense will be a little bit better and the structure with guys buying in will be a little bit better. Maybe you can play Anton Forsberg a little bit more. And it doesn't always work out where everybody stays healthy all the time. But then you go down to the American Hockey League and you have Philip Gustafsson, who they've obviously protected and think a lot of, playing the bulk of the games, and you have Matt Sogard, who was 7-0 at the American Hockey League level last year, as a guy that's pushing Philip Gustafsson on a nightly basis down in Belleville. And then you have Levi Merlanen, who they signed to a 3-year entry-level deal that, Pierre Dorion talked in the availability that we'll let you hear all of, that he had a summer camp with Finland, that he's on track to be the number one guy for Finland at the World Juniors, and he's going to come over and play for Kingston in the Ontario Hockey League. That sounds like some pretty good depth in goal. Because Anton Forsberg, is he 30 yet? If he is, he's just 30. But Matt Murray,
28.
he's 28.
He'll be 29 in November.
Okay, so he's just like a year older than Matt Murray. And everybody else that you're talking about is younger. And going to give them a little bit of time to progress. But he's not wrong, where they took Levi Merlanen last year in the 3rd round. The year before, they were not going to do this, but they thought so much of Matt Sogard that they thought no way he's available at the number 37 spot. I know for a fact that he was way up on their list. So much so that they had, at that point, to say, we need to kind of make a deal to move up to get this guy. We can't let him slip any longer. Even though we didn't necessarily need a goalie. The year before, they took Kevin Mandolese, who I also didn't mention in all of that. In the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League was the goaltender of the year. Yeah, he had an up and down, but it was in COVID and he was in the American Hockey League. He had a couple of good games and a couple of bad games. He's still on track to be a good goaltender. So the year before, they took Jordan Hollett. Now, he hasn't worked out, but they still took a goalie. They just didn't take one in 2016. And they didn't take one in 2014, but they also had 5 picks in each of those drafts, and that's it. Other than that, they've taken a goalie every year. And, going back to Chris Drieger and Marcus Hogberg, they've taken a lot of goaltenders, so they're not afraid to go up and get a goalie. Everything I heard there from Pierre Dorion tells me they're not taking a goalie. But again, if the draft works out where there are 9 players selected and no goaltenders taken at the number 10 spot, now you're going to have more of a decision. I'm guessing that they're hoping that one of the teams ahead of them or a team behind them jumps up to make a trade because they don't want to miss out on Sebastian Cossa or Wellstead. They don't want to miss out on either of those guys. And if one of those guys gets taken in front of them, that just kind of opens up the door a little bit more to get a player that they want. That's how I'm reading into the draft coming up tomorrow night. And like Dean Brown says, Anna could be completely wrong.
How awesome is it that we have to wait one more day for the draft? Like, it's already here.
Yeah. I know. And free agency's next week. When is it? It's on the 28th, right? Today, every day is just like, what day is it?
Yeah.
And you kind of live that way. Yeah, it's next Wednesday. Free agency. Because you're just so used to it being on the day on July 1st and everybody knows and you prepare for it and everything else. But as you said, it just with the way everything's gone, it kind of sneaks up on you. But the NHL draft is tomorrow night. And Saturday.
And as you mentioned throughout the show, we're going to have coverage.
Yeah.
The boss man in tomorrow night.
Who's the boss?
JR.
Oh, I'm glad you just didn't say Tony Danza.
Who's the crew tomorrow night?
Do you even
And
know
it's
who Tony Danza is?
Angela's the boss.
Yeah, there you go.
Not Tony Danza.
Okay. It is JR, Steve Lloyd, Dean Brown. I'll let you pick who you think the boss of that group is.
JR.
Suck up.
He's the boss.
Dean Brown.
And Saturday, you, Graham Creech, Gord Wilson.
Well, we know who the boss is there.
Gord Wilson.
I second that. Even Graham Creech would second that.
Weapon, as Creature likes to call him.
He's our weapon on Saturday.
Gord Weapon Wilson.
Love it. When we come back, we're going to hear a little bit more from Pierre Dorion. And you know what, Matt? I'm going to tie in what Pierre Dorion had to say earlier to the media with our coverage on Saturday specifically when we come back on the drive on TSN 1200.
Let's get back to the drive on the home of the Sens, TSN 1200.
Could just let the entire song play. Hold on. People are singing along in their cars right now, Matt. Fire it up here for the chorus. Here we go. And saw them in concert when they came to Ottawa. 18,000 going crazy. Matt, that's just wrong. Matt, look, you're not hurting me. You're just hurting everyone listening right now.
Oh, you look hurt.
No, but you're hurting everyone listening. Oh, there you go. I can't believe Living on a Prayer fits your musical theme here on a musical theme Thursday. And it's not the voice box.
No, I've already done that theme. Lloydie, I think a first hour solve with the voice box, the talk box guitar. Not my theme today.
No.
But Living on a Prayer, Bon Jovi, does fit my theme. Other songs, Hot for Teacher, Personal Jesus, Creep, and Rio.
Okay. Does it have anything to do with the, is this instrumental based? Like you talked about the voice box?
No.
Okay. So what's the fake piano, the synthesizer?
Synthesizer. Yeah.
Okay.
It's not that all the songs have synth.
Right. Damn. All right, listen, I'm trying here. Trying my best. The Ottawa Senators, as they go into the draft coming up tomorrow night and Saturday afternoon, as I mentioned, myself, Graham Creech, Gord Wilson will be on Saturday afternoon. And it'll be interesting beginning of that broadcast that starts at 11 o'clock because the Ottawa Senators have pick 39 and pick 42. So when the second round starts, they'll have the 7th and the 10th pick of the second round.
Or will they?
Well, Pierre Dorion was asked about that earlier today.
Oh, Wayne, that's a good question. That's something we've always looked at. Always if we feel that there's a player wherever in the first round and worthy of a 2 seconds or a second and a third or a second and another pick in another year, then we'll definitely look at that. Obviously, this draft is a bit different with the lack of viewings of multiple prospects. So I think all teams are on the same page. The 32 teams are all on the same page. So it's definitely something that we've looked at, talked about on multiple fronts as recently as yesterday evening. If we feel we could move 39 and whatever pick or whatever asset to move in the first round, we would do it. It always depends on if the player that you're really targeting is there also.
So Pierre Dorion talking about those picks, 39 and 42. Here's what I do know is that multiple times the Ottawa Senators have had multiple picks in the second round and have done something about it. They seem to be very active when it comes to the second round of the draft. I think back to 2011, where they went into that draft with 2 first-round picks and 3 second-round picks, and they ended up trading a couple of those second-round picks with Detroit to get back up into the first round. I think we just talked about Mads Søgaard. They traded back up after selecting Shane Pinto with the first pick of the second round a couple of years ago. It was only like 5 picks later where they traded back up and got Mads Søgaard. This is a team that is very active when it comes to picks in the second round. What I find really interesting about this year's draft, and we've heard a number of people, we're going to ask Mark Edwards, who's going to join us just after 5 o'clock here today, Hockey Prospect, about this as well. I've heard a number of people, we've had Chris Peters on, we've had Grant McKegg on. There's been a number of people who have been draft experts. And a lot of them have said once you get past, 24, 25, somewhere in there, you could absolutely roll the dice, and anyone from 25 to 50, 55, it's like they have the same grade. A guy picked 49th could be better than the guy who's picked 26th. So you got 2 shots in that window of players that maybe you have a better beat on than some other teams just because of the viewings, or you happen to know some information that other teams don't. With this year being more of a crapshoot, I would find it hard to believe that they're going to actually move those picks, because I think they can get 2 pretty good players at 39 and 42. I really do. And especially when teams reset. Man, a couple of years ago, you think about, there isn't as much action in front of the cameras as there is behind after the first round, before the second round begins. Because everyone's got a chance to go home to the hotel, reset. And this year, because it's being done at people's homes, they have a chance to reset. Okay, who is taken? Who is still left? And it's almost like, okay, we're going to re-rank some of these guys. And if there are 2, 3, 4 guys that people had as first round talents that were not picked, the ability to want to get up into that early second round is massive for teams. And that's where you give Ottawa a ton of credit for not budging, because they were so, into Shane Pinto that they knew we're not moving this pick. Because a lot of teams offer to get back up into the beginning of the second round because they feel like a guy on their board, their scouts are telling them. They're telling them, we have this guy 15th. We have this guy 21st. There's been 32 picks gone by and he hasn't been picked. We have to get back up there. That's what happens Friday night from 11 o'clock until probably about 3 in the morning for every team.
Yeah, that first pick of the second round might be the most realistically desirable pick in the draft. Because I think it's a lot more gettable than first overall. And as you said, you'll have the whole night to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole night, this guy that we had at top 12 is still available. How do we get him?
Right. And it's exactly what happens. And then teams start listening, because what if on your board there's only, say you're the first pick of that second round and now you're 33. Kind of a weird year. I can't remember. I think it was the director of Chicago scouting staff today. What do you think is going to happen in the first round? Well, we know that forfeiture will be in the top 11 because Arizona's pick is 11th and they forfeit their pick. Being a little sarcastic there with, we know that forfeiture is going to go in the top 11. We know that. But when you start going through some of the years and who was picked as that first or second pick or third pick at the beginning of the second round, there's a lot of big names. And from Ottawa's point of view, Shane Pinto, I don't know what he's going to be yet, but you got a feeling that he's going to be pretty good. So I just think that the beginning of the second round is always so fascinating to me when teams have a chance to go home and recalibrate, and their scouts are begging the general manager to get up and do something. You look a few years ago, actually back at that 2011 draft, you look at the first, 5, 6, 7 picks of that second round, and it's Thomas Yurko, and it's Boone Jenner, and it's John Gibson, the goalie, and it's Ty Ratty, and Rocco Grimaldi, and there's just...
Don't forget David Musil, the first pick of round 2 by Edmonton.
Yeah, I always kind of discard Edmonton.
That was what I was doing there.
But
if it was a different team,
mm-hmm.
but because Edmonton,
Yeah. But
Speaks for itself.
Victor Rask, Brandon Saad, Brett Ritchie, Marcus Granlund, like it just goes on and on. There's more hits at the beginning in like the top 15 of the second round than there are misses. And yeah, there's always misses, but if we exclude Edmonton, then maybe there's less misses. Anyway, with Ottawa having the 39 and 42 selections, a couple of things are going to happen. They're either going to really, really like a player enough to try and get up maybe to have the first or second pick of that second round and move those picks to do so because they love a player so much that they had graded way above where other teams had them. Or they're going to listen to a lot of teams call them and say, we need to get up into your area to get our player. And Ottawa will start listening to a lot of deals at that point because they have 2 slots. Oh, I love the draft. I do. And one of the hard things, that it actually will be a little bit easier for us this year. One of the hard things when you're on site covering the draft and you get to day 2 and you're like, okay, here we go. You kind of forget that nobody walks up to the podium, nobody leaves their seats, and they just lean over into the microphone. With the 33rd pick, Edmonton selects David Musil. Okay, Carolina, you're on the clock. With the 34th pick, Carolina, and it just keeps going and going and going.
Next thing you know, it's like round 4.
Yeah, exactly. Well, rounds 2 through 7 will last about 3 hours. 6 rounds. It's always a competition to me which goes longer, the first round or the rest of the draft, because it's very tight and very comparable with those two things. All right, when we come back, we're going to hear a little bit from Marc Bergevin. Is Shea Weber ever going to play again? Well, it didn't sound like it from Marc Bergevin. Is that actually the case? I don't know. We'll discuss it when the drive returns here on TSN 1200.
The Drive continues on TSN 1200.
Welcome back to The Drive. Lieber Sage, Matt Conisvita with you. AJ's flying home from Winnipeg, and he will be with us tomorrow on NHL Round 1 Draft Day. Fantastic. Coming up tomorrow here on TSN 1200. Again, full coverage tomorrow night. JR, Steve Lloyd, Dean Brown, and Saturday afternoon, myself, Graham Creech, Gord Wilson. Rock the Casbah. One of
The Clash.
I would say not in the Bon Jovi Living on a Prayer category of great songs. However, I was singing it here, Matt, Rock the Casbah by The Clash. I didn't want to be, but I was.
So that's anthemic if you don't even like it and you're singing along, just like Living on a Prayer. Rock the Casbah. Not my favorite song by The Clash, but I like that song way more than Living on a Prayer.
That is the latest in our musical theme Thursday. Myself and the listener, whether you want to team with me or not, you are to try and beat Matt Conisvita here today.
We got Hot for Teacher by Van Halen, Personal Jesus by Depeche Mode, Creep by Radiohead, Rio by Duran Duran, Living on a Prayer, Bon Jovi, and Rock the Casbah by The Clash.
Somebody's going to win $100 courtesy of Gabriel Pizza and The Drive on a Takeout Thursday as well. When you hear the cue to call, be caller 15. And also know when Matt Conisvita goes to Gabriel Pizza for breakfast, he orders what?
The Wild Western Omelet. Little ham, little onion, 3-egg omelet. Oh, baby.
All right.
Wild Western Omelet.
So that cue to call could come anytime from now until 6 o'clock. All right. Marc Bergevin talked today about a number of different subjects when it comes to the Montreal Canadiens. Talked about Carey Price. He talked about Jonathan Drouin. We'll get to those two players in a second. But he also talked about Shea Weber and whether he'll be able to play.
Well, it was hard for Shea. I mean, that's all he knows. It's, he's a hockey player to the core. He's been doing that all his life, and it's really hit hard to realize that he can no longer perform the way he's expecting from him and his teammates, and the pain he's go through daily. So we had an emotional, deep conversation, and I mean, I have a lot of respect for Shea, for what he's done for the Montreal Canadiens throughout his career. It will be impossible to replace Shea Weber. I mean, what he brings to our team on and off the ice, we'll try our best, but I know deep down that you can never replace Shea Weber.
Some of the comments of Marc Bergevin, a downtrodden GM of the Montreal Canadiens, talking that Shea Weber's playing career might be over.
Yeah, another clip that was in French where he says, it talks about all the injuries he's been going through, how difficult it is for him even to practice and to get his body ready. And Shea Weber is not a guy who complains, and missing practice is not an option for him. And that all of these injuries mean no season for him. And the quote in French from Bergevin is likely that's it for his career.
A number of different injuries, knee, ankle, and thumb injuries to Shea Weber. So what do we know? We know that Shea Weber is very, very unlikely to play next season. I don't know a lot after that. This is one for me that I think, and I never like it when Matt falls into this category, but things can be two things, like our old host liked to say. It's possible for things to be two things. This is one of them for me. Do I think Shea Weber is very, very injured? Yes, I do. Do I think he's emotional about not winning the Stanley Cup and realizing what he's going to have to put his body through to even think about being a healthy person again in the next year? Yep, that's got to be, if you need major surgery on your ankle and your knee and your thumb just to be able to do normal things in your life, that's a pretty big deal. You're going to be emotional on that. Will Shea Weber ever play hockey again? Marc Bergevin alluded that is absolutely a possibility here. But this is one for me, as much as I do believe Marc Bergevin and I believe Shea Weber, and I don't think that there's any dishonesty going on here, this is one I want to see the paper trail on. And what I mean by that is Shea Weber going to retire? Because if he's not going to retire and he's just going to go on LTIR, this is kind of like a wait and see. You know what, Shea? I know, like, if you're Marc Bergevin, you're saying, I know that you're not feeling good. You come to an understanding and go and have the surgeries and just try and get some of your normal life back. And then we'll talk. But if he retires, that obviously is something where you know that it's not a possibility that he's coming back anytime soon. If he goes on LTIR and it's just kind of a wait and see, I would think at some point down the line, if Shea Weber started to become healthy again, whether the desire would be back on a team to try and win a Stanley Cup or not, to go and play again. I don't think you have to make that decision now. But Marc Bergevin didn't sound very happy in discussing Shea Weber today.
No, and talking about how you can't replace him. And I know Luke Richardson talked about wanting, his 4 Chris Prongers back.
4 Chris Prongers, yeah.
And yeah, I know you're not buying it, that this is the end for Shea Weber. You're not even buying, even listening to you describe it, you're not ruling out that he doesn't play if the Habs make the playoffs next year.
Right.
Just listening to the comments and then knowing what a warrior Shea Weber is and the hard miles on his body. At his age, it's not as it's a lot harder to get yourself back into game shape after time off. And so I'm more, and maybe you'll think I'm a sucker for taking a general manager at his word, but I'm more inclined to believe that this is probably it for Shea Weber as a hockey player.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if we get into Chris Pronger territory in that he's retired, but he's not retired because of cap recapture things. And Chris Pronger, was he not working for organizations while he still hadn't technically filed his retirement
He was
papers?
working for the NHL, I believe, and then was working for other organizations, yes.
And looking it up, when his contract finally expired in 2017, he was able to officially retire. Chris Pronger was. But I wonder if that's not sort of where we're headed, because I know Nashville would be heavily invested in, as you say, the paper trail here, because they would be on the hook for the cap recapture penalties if Shea Weber were to retire.
But you can't just put a guy on LTIR for 4 years until his contract's done, right?
Well,
So-
you're not supposed to, but we saw it with Marian Hossa.
Yeah, people have ways of getting around it.
We've seen it with Chris Pronger.
Yep. And look, Chris Pronger had concussions. And that's a little bit different from what Shea Weber's going through. It's not that Shea Weber's stuff isn't very serious. I'm just saying it's different. And again, I don't know that it's all that much different from how Nikita Kucherov felt. Imagine being one of the best players in the game and having to get hip surgery and knowing that you're probably never going to skate the way you skated before. Can you still be that great player? I don't know.
I don't know. I think surgery at 28 and surgery at 35 are extremely different things when it comes to elite athletes.
That's fair. Before we leave the subject, Marc Bergevin also said he's not alarmed at the health of Carey Price, said the injury could take 6 to 8 weeks to recover from, but more information is needed. There's a small possibility it will be longer.
Interesting that he announced this after the expansion draft, eh?
I don't think anybody bought that Carey Price was so injured that he was never going to be able to come back and play hockey again. I never for 1 second thought that. Marc Bergevin also saying good news on Jonathan Drouin. Dom Ducharme and Marc Bergevin met with Jonathan Drouin yesterday. He feels great. He's focused. He's ready to go. Expect him to be in Montreal for the first day of camp. So that's great news for Jonathan Drouin and the Montreal Canadiens. I heard some rumblings out of Seattle that they weren't very happy with the way that Marc Bergevin and the Montreal Canadiens handled this whole this draft expansion stuff. Messing around with, big time players and injuries and everything else. That they weren't kind of honoring what the expansion draft was all about. I don't like siding with the Montreal Canadiens very much, Matt, but this one, I'm going to have to.
This is one where I had to go back and look because the two players it stands to reason that they'd be upset about are that Shea Weber and Carey Price were exposed and presented as like it wouldn't be prudent to take these players, particularly Shea Weber. But when I went back and looked at the expansion requirements, they were won over as far as defensemen and goaltenders exposed. Mm-hmm. So if your argument is one of the guys you had to expose was Shea Weber, who you're saying his career could be over, they also exposed Kulak, who also met the requirements. Mm-hmm. And they had a goalie whose name I can't even remember now, but who also met the requirements. So it wasn't just Carey Price. Carey Price wasn't the only goalie exposed to Seattle that met the requirements for experience in the NHL.
But
so
what they're really beefed at is Jake Allen and Joel Edmondson not being available.
Sure.
And
but Carey Price waived.
Mm-hmm.
Shea Weber
could have taken him.
Same thing.
Yep.
And I mean, if you're going to complain about the expansion draft rules, I can tell you that people who were with the Ottawa Senators and the Tampa Bay Lightning back in the day would like to have a conversation with you. And I know it sucks. You were counting on, getting probably one of those defensemen, and then because of how things shook out, you weren't able to, but them's the breaks.
Callum Fraser in the 580 CFRA News Desk, Ontario Science Advisory Table, advocates for vaccine certificates despite the Ford government opposing such a system. Callum will have more on that. We'll have what you need to know. In the next hour, we're going to hear the full conversation that Pierre Dorion had with the media earlier today, and we'll talk about that. In the 5 o'clock hour, Mark Edwards from Hockey Prospect will join us, and we'll go over the draft again, because more interesting with Ottawa having a goalie taken in the expansion draft. Is that more of their need? We'll ask Mark that question and more. All before 6 o'clock here on The Drive on TSN 1200.